Welcome to Prayer and Bible Band, Lesson 10. I do not own the rights to this music. The topic is learning to deal with criticism. The background reading is coming out of Ecclesiastes chapter 5, verses 2 through 3, Proverbs chapter 8, verse 13, Proverbs chapter 9, verse 8, Proverbs 15, verse 31, and Job 38, verses 2 through 3. The devotional reading is coming out of Hebrews chapter 12, verses 5 through 11. The central verse says, "He that refuseth instruction despiseth his own soul, but he that heareth reproof, understanding." That's Proverbs chapter 15, verse 32. The NIV version of that same scripture. Those who disregard discipline despise themselves, but the one who heeds correction gains understanding. Ecclesiastes chapter 5, verses 2 through 3. Be not rash with thy mouth, and let not thine heart be hasty to utter anything before God. For God is in heaven, and thou upon earth. Therefore let thy words be few. For a dream cometh through the multitude of business, and a fool's voice is known by multitude of words. Proverbs chapter 8, verse 13. The fear of the Lord is to hate evil, pride and arrogancy, and the evil way, and the forward mouth do I hate. Proverbs chapter 9, verse 8. Reprove not a scorner, lest he hate thee. Rebuke a wise man, and he will love thee. Proverbs 15, verse 31. The ear that heareth the reproof of life abideth among the wise. Job 38, verses 2 through 3. Who is this that darkeneth counsel by words without knowledge? Gird up now thy loins like a man, for I will demand of thee, and answer thou me. Hebrews chapter 12, verses 5 through 11. And ye have forgotten the exhortation which speaketh unto you as unto children. My son, despise not thou the chastening of the Lord, nor faint when thou art rebuked of him. For whom the Lord loveth, he chasteneth, and scourgeth every son whom he receiveth. If ye endure chastening, God dealeth with you as with sons. For what son is he whom the Father chasteneth not? But if you be without chastisement, whereof all are partakers, then are ye bastards and not sons. Furthermore, we have had fathers of our flesh, which corrected us, and we gave them reverence. Shall we not much rather be in subjection unto the Father of spirits and live? For they verily for a few days chastened us after their own pleasure, but he for our profit, that we might be partakers of his holiness. Now no chastening for the present seemeth to be joyous, but grievous. Nevertheless, afterward it yieldeth the peaceable fruit of righteousness unto them which are exercised thereby. The key terms for today's lesson: chasten, harsh, and critiqued. Chasten means to correct by punishment or suffering, to cause to be more humble or restrained. Harsh means unpleasant and difficult to accept or experience, severe or cruel, not kind. Critiqued, an act of criticizing, to examine critically or review. The introduction says, no one enjoys being criticized by others, especially when it is done negatively or harshly. It is not easily accepted when it is done in front of others to humiliate a person. Believers must always be careful when they have criticism to share about someone else. There are two types of criticism: negative and positive. Negative criticism tends to tear a person down and destroys them, but positive criticism usually builds a person up when received with the right spirit. Constructive criticism must always be given in a loving, patient, and truthful way, while remembering the purpose is to help someone get better, build them up, and help them live a better life. Sometimes a person may not receive criticism because of perceived fault or mistakes, which may not be true. These words are demeaning and hurtful, and should not have been said at all. The word tells the believer to be careful with what he says. The less you speak concerning some things, the better off you will be. When a person talks too much, it shows that he is foolish. The discussion says there are some things a believer might believe to be true, although they may create more harm than good, so it's best to refrain from speaking. Criticism is sure to come, but believers must know how to discern truth from false, and then they must prayerfully ask God to help them deal with it. Paul said that Alexander, the coppersmith, had done him much harm, but he said that God would deal with him. The Lord informed the believers that offenses would come, but woe to the one from whom it comes. So as believers, expect criticism, find the good, and become better. If a person neglects to receive criticism, he harms himself, but if he listens to correction, it allows him to grow. As we know that wisdom is the principal thing, the believers must get understanding in everything. The word of the Lord lets the believer know that God chastens those whom he loves. God tells the believer not to ignore his discipline and not allow himself to be crushed by it, because this is God's way of embracing his child. So know that when God is chastening, it is not punishment. It is his way of training. Parents who love their children spend time loving on them, but they also train and correct them. Sometimes they have to use punishment, but it's not to harm the child, but to help. So remember, if God is chastening one of his children, it's because he wants the best for them. The discipline, when given, does not seem like much fun. It's working for the good of those who love God and want to represent him well. The Bible tells the believer that if he is going to criticize someone, make sure it will edify that person. It says that the believer should speak the truth in love and be assured that knowing the truth will bring freedom in that area. He also tells the believers not to complain against one another, but if you have a complaint, give it love and patience rather than abusive or harsh words. When a person is critiqued in a good, honest, and loving approach, they will likely become a more confident individual. When the criticism comes from a place of love and protection, it usually will be helpful to the individual to whom it is given. It is the responsibility of the believer to be honest, but don't be cruel. If the criticism warning must be given, give it with the spirit of meekness and pray for compassion that the person is restored. The believers are in the business of restoration, not destroying the life and the hope of people. The conclusion says God had to rebuke Job when he was going through. He had gotten the wrong understanding of what was going on with him. Sometimes when criticism or rebukes come, it gives a feeling of being abandoned. But believers know that God is only refining you to make a better you. No chastening feels good while it is being given. But if a person can endure it, remember weeping may endure for a night, but joy comes in the morning. The situation won't always be like that. God is perfecting that which concerns you. The song says, sooner or later, it will turn in your favor. God is working it out for you. The questions for today's lesson. Question 1. What is the purpose of criticism? Question 2. What is the difference between constructive and destructive criticism? Question 3. Why does God use chastisement on his children? The essential thought says, criticism is like some medicine, bitter going in, but healing coming out. The end. God bless you, and thank you for joining me today.